恭敬大德三听，为四法为基地，业众生经转妙法轮，教导我如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputo 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha Namo. Quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha Namo. Quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, medicine master, Buddha, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one, medicine master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good-knowing advisors, welcome back to the Medicine Master Buddha Sutra lecture. We are on class 105. And so last week, what we did was we looked at the world of form, or known as the heaven of the dhyanas. There are 4 different levels. Actually, there are more levels. 4 different parts of these heavens, each one corresponding to the 4 dhyanas. And we also look at what it was like to pray to Lord Brahma, who thinks that he's the God, he's the all creator, and how basically even another Brahma god came to the lady and told her that she's more or less just wasting her time praying to Brahma, and that she should be making proper merit by making offerings to arhats instead of Lord Brahma himself. Okay, so today what we're going to do is we're going to take a in-depth look at the heavens of the first dhyana. There are 3 heavens of the first dhyana. Let me show you the slide. Okay, so where we are now is number 12 to 27. If you look at your screen, is the 16 form heavens. And of the 16 form heavens, let me show you. If you look at the green section, the darkest green on the lowest part, heavens of the first dhyana, then there are 3 heavens there, the heaven of Brahma's retinue, the ministers of Brahma heaven, and the great Brahma heaven. That's what we're going to be looking at today. All right. So before we continue, as usual, are there any questions from anyone? Excuse me. Or anything you want to bring up? Okay, if you don't want to unmute your microphone, you can always type into the chat box. Someone had a question in the last few days, and let me see if the person is with us. Maybe not, but if this person is with us, then I can ask her to repeat her question for everyone online. Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, heavens of the first dhyana. Okay, and we're going to look at the state of mind of the people who are born in this heaven of the first dhyana, or basically the how you say, the people born, the Brahma gods, they are born in the heaven of the first dhyana. Their mind corresponds to someone who meditates until they reach the first dhyana. It's very, very similar. The only difference being that if you meditate, okay, and you are able to enter the first dhyana more or less based on skill, and at the moment of death, you are able to maintain that state of mind, you will definitely be reborn as a Brahma god in the heavens of the first dhyana. Okay. The other way to be born in this heaven is to have a state of mind which is very, very similar to that of the first dhyana. So you don't have to know how to meditate, but your state of mind is so calm that it's very, very similar to someone with that level of concentration. Okay, so two ways to get reborn in the heavens of the first dhyana. So we're going to look at what that means. How would someone who is reborn as a Brahma god, before they are reborn there, how would they behave? How would they be like? So the Brahmas of this, I'm just going to read from the slides. The Brahma of this level enjoy a mental state that is equivalent to the first dhyana. Attaining dhyana is compared to entering into a Brahma Vimana, meaning a palace of Brahma. To understand the state of existence of a Brahma, we need to pursue a brief digression into the theory of the dhyanas. So this is going to get a bit academic, but I promise you it's going to be interesting. So the dhyanas are states achieved by meditation, primarily marked by a deep stability of mind. That means your mind becomes very still. There are 4 dhyanas of the Rupa Bhumi, the plane of form, and 4 of the Arupa Bhumi, or the plane of formlessness. What does that mean? Okay, let me show you again that Excel sheet. Okay, let me show you again. Okay, when it says just now, it says 4 dhyanas of the Rupa Bhumi. If you look at the green part, this world of form, the Rupa Bhumi, all these that I'm highlighting, that's what it means. So the lowest one, the dark green one, is where you go if you master the first dhyana. You master the second dhyana, there are 3 other heavens waiting for you, depending on how good you master that level. Then the third dhyana, and then finally the 4th dhyana. And then above this, there are another 4 further states of meditation that lead you into what's called the formless world. And that's the highest, how would I put, the most elevated form of existence that you can get within the Saha world. I wouldn't say it's the best. Okay, it's definitely not the best, but it's the highest form of where the mind, the consciousness becomes very, very subtle. Okay, why is it not the best? Well, because the consciousness is so subtle, you end up not being able to learn anything. Yeah, there's this story where when the Buddha was born as a prince, and the father who was King Sudodana, white pure rice king, and he knew of this rishi, this like a very wise man with very strong meditative powers. So he came to visit the baby prince, the baby before became the Buddha. And then when he saw and examined the prince, he realized that this baby is going to be either a world-turning king, someone who will unite the world by ruling with compassion, or he will become a Buddha, a teacher of gods and humans. And then he cried. And so the father, the king, father of the Buddha, the king, father of the prince, not the Buddha yet, became very alarmed. And he said, "Oh, why are you crying?" And he said, "Well, he said, I'm going to die before your son becomes the Buddha. And for that, and because of that, I'm not going to be able to benefit from his teaching." And he knew that he was going to be born in one of these formless world heavens of the formless dhyana. And because the consciousness there is so subtle that even if he wanted to, he would not be able to come down to Jambudvipa to listen to the Buddha and become a sage, or the Buddha would not be able to go to where he was and to teach. Something like that. I don't have the full details, but when we get there, I will share that story. Okay. So that's what it means. You have the first four dhyanas, which is the green section. And then the upper part, the light blue, that's the further four formless dhyanas. Okay, let me bring this away. Okay. All right. Then we go on. It is important to remember that although the dhyanas are a refined state, it is not the goal of the Buddhist path, which is nirvana, the unconditioned. Dhyana and the Rupa Bhumi means the heavens of the four dhyanas, remain within the bounds of samsara, meaning there's still birth and death. The hindrances are not eradicated by it, merely rendered quiescent. So when you're in this state, what this means, not eradicated, but merely rendered quiescent, is that your bad habits are not eradicated, but your conditions are so nice that your bad habits never have a chance to show itself. Yeah, something like that. Say, hence, Mahabrahma has not eradicated the root of ill will. He has only suppressed it with metta or loving kindness. So the Mahabrahma has no hatred or ill will. There's no way they can give rise to ill will. But it's only temporary. It's only while they exist within that heaven. If they die and they fall back into the human realm, then the conditions will appear where their past seeds of ill will arise again. Okay. So metta is one of the four states called the Brahma Viharas, and then the other three are compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And that's why they are called the Brahma Viharas. Literally, it means the dwellings of Brahma, or the abode of Brahma, because that's the state of a heavenly being, a Brahma being in this heaven. We will not be looking at metta today, but it's a very, very important practice. It's one of the foundational practices of Buddhism. So we'll definitely look at it in more detail in one of the coming classes. So whereas meditation on any object culminating in dhyana leads to rebirth in the heavens of the first dhyana, the development of the Brahma Viharas as objects of meditation are especially associated with Brahma level rebirth. And of these four, meditation on metta or loving kindness in particular leads to a rebirth at the level of the heavens of the first dhyana. So there are 3 heavens in the first dhyana. So in particular, metta or loving kindness will get you there. Okay, so it's basically this paragraph is saying that you can dhyana, the first dhyana is kind of like the level of concentration or the level of stillness you get with your mind. And then metta or loving kindness, you can look at it as the topic or object of meditation. That's one way to understand what this passage means. So the author says that we can say that metta is the normal emotional state of Brahmas. Okay. And it says, because of the parallelism between dhyana and the mind of a Brahma, we can use knowledge of either one to gain a deeper understanding of the other. So to take a clear practical example, because samadhi is often referred as concentration, and ekagatas, which means one-pointedness. Beginning meditators often assume they need to narrow or concentrate their minds to a point, meaning you concentrate on one thing and to the extent that you shut everything out. So single-pointedness. But the author says, but when we recall that a Mahabrahma can observe up to 100,000 world systems, like a man holding a pile of nuts in his hand, we can see how mistaken this approach is. So it's not entirely accurate to say that one pointedness concentration means that you're only focused on one object, because God in the Brahma heavens otherwise would not be able to function as how they do. Okay. So it says the mind in dhyana, like the mind of a Brahma, is vast and expansive. So you're not just limited to the topic of meditation that you're concentrating on. Say some Mahabrahmas are subject to pride and false views, as we have seen some of the stories that we shared. But others are disciples of the Buddha and may even have attained to one or another of the stages of awakening. So some of the Brahmas, the heavenly Brahmas, can be first to third stage arhats. We'll find out later. So it is clear, however, that even the wisest and most highly attained Mahabrahmas are beneath the Buddha in the spiritual hierarchy. Likewise, a Mahabrahma wielding power over 10,000 world systems can serve the Buddha or the Arahants like a monastery attendant, also carrying the Buddha's robes and bowl at the time of the first alms round after his awakening. So to some people, okay, Mahabrahma is like a very elevated being, like God, actually a lot bigger, not bigger, what's the word? A bigger God than God is himself, because God is commonly known as Lord Chakra or Indra, whereas Brahma is the creator of Indra or Chakra. So Brahma is a lot higher in that sense. So what happens is, within Buddhism, especially compared to the Buddha, if you look at some of the sutras, the roles that the Mahabrahmas play are actually very secondary. Yeah. For example, when the Buddha, before he became the Buddha, and the prince was sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he had defeated Mara, who came to try to entice the prince. And after the prince had defeated Mara, a Mahabrahma appeared and held a white umbrella, or white, in the sutras they call it a white parasol, and held it over the Buddha's head. And second time this happened was after the Buddha came down from the Trimsha heaven, or the heaven of the 33, after the Buddha had taught his mother. And one of the Mahabrahmas were also shielded the Buddha with an umbrella, with a parasol. And not just the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra, when he was sick and he wanted to cross over or to teach his own mother. Oh, that's very interesting. Venerable Shariputra's mother prayed to Lord Brahma. Yes, so she herself didn't believe in the Buddha, and she prayed to Lord Brahma. So Shariputra fell sick, went back to his house to rest, and he started getting visits from all the gods. So first the first heaven, the heaven of the four great kings, the four kings themselves came to see Shariputra, and then the Lord Indra or Chakra came to visit Shariputra. So one by one, all the way up to Lord Brahma. And then the mother was very intrigued, because when these gods came, they were she knew they were not people, and they shone with a lot of light. And first it was the four heavenly kings, and then the Lord Indra or Chakra, and then Lord Yama came. So she saw all these beings who were one after the other, even more resplendent, more regal, more I don't know how gods are, she was very, very impressed. And so Shariputra said, oh, the last one that came, that was who you pray to, that was Lord Brahma. And to us, and then the mother was very impressed, because Lord Brahma himself came to attend to her own son. And then she realized, oh, if my son is so great, then the Buddha, who is my son's master, must be the greatest. And that's how she took refuge with the Buddha. Okay, all right, let's move on. Okay, so if you ever wondered what the first dhyana is like, and this is, we're going to spend a bit of time on the first dhyana because of a question that we received a long time ago. I haven't seen her in our classes for the last few weeks. I'm not sure if she's still in New York, and I'm very bad with names, so I kind of forgot her name, but I will definitely remember after I need to. She asked about the four dhyanas. And so this is the kind of like the appropriate time to look at the dhyanas. So the first dhyana is defined by the absence of the five hindrances and the presence of five factors or five wholesome factors. So what are the five hindrances? The first one is sensual pleasure or gratification from sensual pleasure. And number two is ill will or malice. Number three is sloth and torpor. Yeah, am I pronouncing that right? Torpor. Number four is anxiety and restlessness. And number five is skeptical doubt. So we're going to go through one by one. So if any one of you has recited the Buddha's name, or you tried to meditate, and you ever wonder why you haven't, experienced the first dhyana, or what's wrong, what can you do to improve, maybe look at this list of these five. Okay. So these five do not arise in the consciousness of a person in the state of the first dhyana or in that of a Brahma being. Okay, so what is number one? What is sensual pleasure? Sensual pleasure can also be translated as sensual gratification. It means the satisfaction that we get from sensual objects. What are sensual objects? Okay, sensual objects are anything that we can get from our five senses. So anything that we see, our eyes, we see, our eyes, ears, we hear. So some people like music. Nose, we have smells and aromas, usually from food or perfume. And our mouth, we have taste. And then our body, we like to wear nice, soft, comfortable clothes. We like furniture that's that make us feel good, comfortable shoes that are comfortable. So any satisfaction that we get from this is called sensual pleasure or sensual gratification. And this is overcome, okay, this hindrance is overcome when you get into the first dhyana. So when you get the first dhyana, you don't care about all this anymore. You touch something soft, it doesn't mean anything to you at all. So what happens is, if you become a sage, okay, if you become a first level arhat, stream enterer, then you eliminate the some forms of that you get from sensual pleasure. That means sensual pleasure starts to mean less to you than normal people. And then when you become a second stage arhat, or what's known as a once returner, then the gross forms are eradicated. So you are even further removed from sensual pleasure than other people. And then when you become a non-returner or third stage arhat, then it means nothing to you anymore. All this, uh, uh, even the best music in the world or heavenly music does not move you anymore. It just doesn't mean you don't hanker after sensual gratification. You are above it. Yeah. All right. So number two, why is number one important to overcome? Well, if you look at our lives, the things that we buy, the things that we like to eat, almost every single thing in our life is driven, the decisions that we make is driven by our sensual pleasure. No one's going to buy a shoe that doesn't fit them. No one's going to, if you have two pairs of shoes that you can choose from to buy, people will always choose the one that depending on what they want. If looks are important, then they choose the one with looks. If the brand is important, then they choose the one with the brand. If comfort is important, then they choose the one with comfort. Or if performance, if it's a sports shoe, then you choose the performance. It might be light or better grip or anything. All those, it comes under the satisfaction that you get from sensual objects. So our daily life, the choices that we make, and most of the time they go against what we are supposed to be doing in Buddhism, is because of sensual pleasure. So that's why it's number one is such a big deal. Okay. All right. Number two, ill will or malice. What is that? Ill will or malice is whenever you don't like someone and you wish that something bad happens to that person. Okay. Or a more subtle form is when something good happens to someone that you don't like and that makes you upset. That's also ill will or malice. A more serious form of ill will is you have the intent to hurt them. You actually think about hurting them or poisoning them, or doing something to their belongings or something like that. So that's malice or ill will. And if you examine your mind, it usually comes along because you want something that they have, or they prevent you from getting something that you want, and you have wrong views. You don't have right views. What is wrong view or right view? Well, not understanding, okay, that every person's actions or life are their own responsibility. So for example, if someone else, say, wins the lottery, okay, or they get the promotion that you want, it is because of their karma and also your karma. So there's no one else who is responsible except yourself for yourself, and themselves for themselves. So once you understand that, that removes malice or ill will, because you realize that even if you wish for something to happen, you're just wasting your time. That's not going to happen. So related to that is understanding the futility of anger, or whatever it is that comes up, that makes that for you, the feeling that arises when you have malice or ill will. So it could be anger or hatred, and you realize that what's the point in having feelings like that? You're just kind of hurting yourself. But if you have malice or ill will, and you realize that it's not doing you any good, then one way to overcome that is to develop loving kindness. It's one of the hardest things to do, especially for someone you don't like, to develop loving kindness for them, which is why the practice of loving kindness first begins with yourself. Then you will find that if you have a very solid foundation of how you see yourself, then it makes it a lot easier to develop loving kindness for other people. So we'll look into that in a future class about loving kindness. Okay. And another reason why malice is important is because malice prevents you from the feeling of rapture. Feeling of rapture is how you say, it's a physical feeling, physical and mental feeling. We'll come to it later in the next slide when we talk about priti, which Priti, sorry, priti, I should have said that's a Sanskrit word, which means happiness, zest, or rapture. So we'll look at that, okay? And conversely, if you know how to develop rapture in yourself, then you will also be able to overcome your malice or ill will. So you have loving kindness, okay? Not weapons, but ways to combat malice and ill will is loving kindness, rapture, equanimity, which is the ability to not be affected by things outside of yourself. We'll also look in that in detail. And you will fully overcome malice or ill will when you become an arhat, a fourth stage arhat. So until then, you will have latent tendencies of ill will and malice, and you have to deal with it. Okay. Before we move on, do we have any questions? No? Okay. So number 3, sloth and torpor. What is this? This is when you feel lazy, when you feel sleepy, you feel slow, you just want to relax and take a nap. This is what it means, sloth and torpor. So sloth and torpor is, you can think of it as an involuntary, how you say, you don't mean to, but you find your senses being pulled away from you. No, that's not the right way to put it. You don't mean to, but you just can't help it, but like fall asleep or get disengaged. Like you are supposed to be reading, but you just stare at the book, and your mind starts to daydream. That's one way of understanding it. So you're in front of the TV, and then or you have the radio on, and you find yourself falling asleep halfway, or while reading. That's what it means, sloth and torpor. Particularly in meditation, sometimes it just overtakes you, and you sit there and you can't help but just fall asleep. So why is this bad? This is bad because it takes you away. It prevents you from even getting into the first dhyana. Why? Because you can't even take the first step. What's the first step? The first step is having an initial, they call it an initial application of attention. Okay, what's the initial application of attention? That's actually the first of the 5 wholesome factors that you get in the first dhyana. That's in the next slide that we are going to look at. So sloth and torpor doesn't even let you get to that first step because you're just overcome by sleep or by a fogginess of the mind. You can't even concentrate. You can't even begin to concentrate. So that's how it works. Yeah. And to overcome sloth and torpor, you need great effort. You need a lot of effort to rouse yourself up. The Buddha gave some ideas to monks who couldn't help but fall asleep. One way is to memorize the scriptures, or say like a mantra. Or if you have a mantra that you've already memorized, you try to recollect, you recite it from memory. Another way the Buddha explained is to visualize a light. For example, the Buddha said that you can imagine the sun rising from the horizon. So what is that called? Sunrise. Yeah, imagine a sunrise, and then the light that comes up is very warm, and it fills the whole universe with nice light, and that's how you wake yourself up. And the Buddha said, if that fails, then you just get up, stand up, and start walking around in the open air, get some exercise. That's how you wake yourself up. Okay, so that's sloth and torpor. Number 4 is anxiety and restlessness. This means an agitation or a distraction, and there's also a sense of worry or sometimes regret. And this prevents you from feeling happy. It sucks away all the joy that you could have. So anxiety and restlessness. And how does this come about? Well, this comes about, it's called an unwise attention to mental unrest. So you think about things that make you worry, and you can't help, either on purpose, you keep thinking about it, or, for example, like someone, take a young couple, they don't really know if the other person likes them or not, and they start thinking and thinking, and they just put themselves in that state of restlessness and anxiety, and they're very nervous, and they're happy at the same time, but they don't know that they are putting themselves through a lot of suffering. Someone like that, they're never going to get to the first dhyana. Why? Because they are concentrating on, they have unwise attention to their mental unrest. So sometimes you can't help yourself. Sometimes a problem can be so big, it's so overwhelming that it just consumes you. It's the same. That has the same effect as well. So the Buddha said that one way to overcome this is through learning and reflecting. So not just reading the sutras and the precepts, but to ponder over them as well. So you focus your mind on something wholesome rather than unwholesome. Another way, the Buddha said, is to mix with elders of calm demeanor. So you find some people, elders here usually means the monastics. They're very calm. People scold them and their blood pressure doesn't even move. They don't fight back. They don't say anything. They might just smile. And if you mix with people like that, then their calm demeanor rubs off on you. I just thought of a story that I had. So there's this lay person at the city of 10,000 Buddhas. Originally, I think he's from Guangzhou. So he's a Cantonese speaking person. And his English isn't so great. So when I communicate with him, because my Cantonese isn't so great either, I only understand about maybe 30 to 60% of what he says. So anyway, when I was as a lay person staying in the city of 10,000 Buddhas, sometimes Stephen's house is in San Francisco, but he would volunteer at CDTB. So sometimes on the weekends, I would get a ride from him down to the Bay Area and back just for fun. And there was one time when we were driving on the highway, and the car behind us started honking. Okay. So I wasn't sure what was going on. And so I started to, what's the word for it? Pay unwise attention. So I turned around. A lot of thoughts were going through my mind. Maybe there was a problem with our car. Maybe the driver was trying to tell us something, or maybe we were driving too slow or too fast or something. So I asked Stephen what was going on, and Stephen is a very practical person. Stephen, at that time, he was in his 70s, but he's very fit. Stephen's very fit. And his reaction in Cantonese was, okay, let me see if I can mimic him and say, which means that I can't, there's no direct translation in English. How do you translate that? I'm sure a lot of people here speak Cantonese, right? He was very dismissive. Okay. He was very, very dismissive. Like, I can't be bothered with the person behind. Yeah. So there's not calm demeanor, but there's just, how you say, he doesn't pay attention to something like that. It doesn't affect him at all. Yeah. So that story came to mind. Okay. Another way to overcome restlessness and worry is to have right concentration or samadhi, proper concentration, wholesome concentration. Okay. Anyone want to help me translate Choi Hetu So into English? Anyone? No? Gary, can you help? No? Okay. Anyway, last one, number 5, skeptical doubt. What is skeptical doubt? Oh, Gary says it's Hokkien. Okay, I don't think there's an equivalent in Fujian or Hokkien, right?
I think it means Fa Shi, it just means that doesn't deserve any oaths, doesn't deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anyone
okay.
deserve my attention kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Melinda says neglect. No, it's not quite neglect. I don't think there's a equivalent saying in English. Yeah, that's just the meaning, but there's no, culturally, there's no way to say it in English. Yeah. Okay, number 5, skeptical doubt. What is that? Skeptical doubt is when someone is not sure or not convinced. And in this case, it is about the Dharma. So for example, you tell them about the Four Noble Truths, you say, this is suffering, or the way out of suffering is a noble eightfold path, or you say that everything is cause and effect, there's karma, and it's based on intention, and they hear what you say, but they're not sure. Something prevents them from accepting what you say. Yeah, some people are just like that. Okay, Melinda says, do not want to waste time to talk to you. Okay, that's the literal translation. Do not want to wait. I have no time to waste to even consider or talk to you. Yeah, Choi Le Tu So. Yeah. Okay, coming back to doubt or skepticism. How skepticism works in preventing you from getting concentrated. Concentrated is this. To get concentrated, the first thing you need to do is to be able to have a sustained application of your mind on your meditative topic. We'll come to that. Okay, in the next slide, we'll come to the 5 wholesome factors. So we'll look at that. So what skeptical doubt does is, as you are trying to concentrate or trying to recite the Buddha's name or the mantra, suddenly a thought will come to you like, why are you wasting your time? Or is this going to work? Or you've been doing this for how many years or how many months or how many weeks and still nothing happens, or you find your mind straying to that exact thought of doubt, and you then begin to doubt yourself even more. That's what doubt is. So it pulls your mind away from where your mind is supposed to be. So it's called a two-pointedness of mind. It fogs your mind. Your mind is traveling down one road. If anyone has tried to learn how to roller skate, they will know what this means. You're going down one path and suddenly your left foot goes left and your right foot goes right. So there's a two-pointedness of mind, and then it splits you apart. And so the mind is unable to engage. So you're not sure whether to go left or right, and then in the end, you just fall. Yeah. Okay, so it's other words that are used is a wavering of the mind or indecision. So the only way to counter this is wisdom, prajna, and understanding, development of your understanding and your faith in the Buddha and the Dharma and the Sangha. And the more you know, then the less doubt you have. Yeah, and then doubt is completely eliminated when you become a first stage arhat. You don't have to wait until a second or third stage. So when you become a first stage arhat, your mental faculties are such that you realize that whatever the Buddha has been saying is entirely true because you have seen it for yourself. Just as someone points out that the sea is salty, it's actually very hard to imagine that the sea can be salty if you have never experienced the sea, or if you live in the desert and if you never experienced a large body of water before. It's very, very hard to imagine. But once you experience it for yourself, then you have no doubt at all that, the rest of the sea tastes the same as, one drop of the ocean. And so that's what happens with the Dharma when you become a first stage Arhat. And from then on, you only progress. You only move forward on the path because you have no more doubt. And that helps your mind rest. Okay, so we just looked at the 5 unwholesome factors or the 5 hindrances that prevent you from wisdom, sensual pleasure, or the enjoyment that we get from our things, ill will or malice because of people we don't like, sloth and torpor, fogginess in our mind, anxiety, restlessness, and finally skeptical doubt because we don't understand enough of the Dharma. So our mind works against us by giving us maybe this or that, or, it just comes from ignorance. Okay. So a Brahma, okay, if you are reborn in the Brahma heavens, or you know what the first dhyana is like, they don't have all this at all. Okay. This traits do not exist in their minds. Okay. Now let's look at the 5 wholesome ones, also known as the 5 defining factors. First one is vitaka, or initial application of mind. The second one is vichara, or sustained application of mind. So the first one is initial, second one is sustained. Third one is priti, or happiness, zest, or rapture. Number 4, sukha, which means bliss, ease, or joy. And number 5, chitai kagrata, which is one-pointedness of mind. But literally, it means more like gone to oneness. So what does all this mean? Okay, the first one, vitaka, they describe it as a bee flying towards a flower. So in Tempian, in our parking lot, we have this very little pond. It's like maybe like 6 feet by 4 feet, very small pond. And there are lotus flowers in the pond. And sometimes there are bees that come because of the water. I'm not sure why they're attracted to the water. Maybe they're attracted by we have, what's that? We have lotus flowers and they are lilies, water lilies, yes. So I'm not sure if they're attracted by the flowers, but what I do see is that they fly onto the lotus leaf and they go to the edge of the lotus leaf, and that's how they get to the water. So what applied thought is, or vitaka, is described as the bee is flying around and then it spots a flower. So when it spots a flower, it moves towards the flower, and it's not going to deviate from his. He has a target. He has chosen a target, and it knows where it wants to go, and it flies right to the flower. So that's what applied thought, or applied attention, or initial application of the mind is like. So you direct your focus on the chosen meditative object. So say you sit down and you already know that you want to recite the Buddha's name, and when you sit down, straight away you recite the Buddha's name. You're not thinking about, how long you want to sit. You're not thinking about, after that, you're not thinking about whether your cushion is comfortable or not, or should you turn on the fan or the aircon, or put your phone to silent mode, or whatever it is that gets in the way. You don't have all those things anymore. You are just able to go straight to your topic of meditation and kind of stay there for a while. Okay, so that's what initial application of mind is, which is why sloth and torpor prevents even that first step. You sit down and if you have sloth and torpor, when you try to meditate, you don't even think about your meditation topic. You're just sitting there trying to feel comfortable, and maybe your saliva is drooling from the corner of your mouth, and you're just trying your best to stay awake. That's what sloth and torpor does. Okay, so what happens when you have that initial application of mind, and you're able to hold that for a while. Then you move on to the next stage, which is sustained application of mind. What is that like? This is again using the excuse me, using the example of the bee. After the bee has spotted the flower and has flown to the flower, now the bee is on the flower and it doesn't care about anything else. It's just on the flower doing what it has to do, collect the not pollen, what does the bee collect? Nectar from the flower. Yeah. And it's totally concentrated on that. This is what sustained thought is. And the longer you hold that, the longer you're able to sustain the application of your mind. Okay. And this is on one topic. So when you say you're reciting the Buddha's name, you firmly settle on reciting the Buddha's name. You don't tell yourself after 5 or 10 minutes, maybe you should be reciting the mantra or concentrating on your breathing or whatever it is that takes away your mind. If you have that, then you don't have vichara at all. Okay. So vichara means you continuously either examine your meditation or topic, or you're just doing it at the same time, okay, in a deep way. Okay. So what happens when you do this? The next step is called priti, or happiness, zest, or rapture. Excuse me, just let me get a sip of water. Excuse me. Okay, what happens when you have priti? Priti is said to be your body and your mind feels really refreshed, and it is more of a physical sensation. So if it's the body is physical, and what kind of physical sensation? It's kind of like when your hair stand on end, you know, in Hokkien they say mo kin chang. Yeah, hair stand on end, that kind of feeling. Or sometimes some people describe it as a sensation of wind or movement under the skin, and it doesn't. It has to do with. Let me see. I'm not sure, but if you ask me, it has to do with the. It has to do with the movement of the energy within the body. Chinese we call it qi. In Hinduism, they call it something else. What is it? I don't remember the name, but there's a name for it. Yeah. So that is the physical sensation that's known as rapture, joy, or zest. And then it says that as the experience becomes ever more intense, it becomes transporting rapture, and you feel really, really light. Some people feel like they're floating. Some people feel they're really light. Sometimes you feel like your body isn't there at all. It starts with your hands disappearing. You're sitting there and you realize that, hey, you are not aware of your hands anymore in a physical way. And then slowly that may spread to the body, the rest of the body. And usually when you have this kind of sensations, then the mind becomes very quiet and joyful at the same time. So it comes to a point where you get this all-pervading happiness. It's described as all-pervading happiness, and it just saturates the body, your entire body. You know, they say inside and out. You feel filled with this kind of feeling. And when this happens, you have no more ill will. You just feel really comfortable and at ease, and you don't feel tired at all. No tiredness. And you will get this as you come close to the first dhyana and the second dhyana of meditation. Yeah. And this is connected to when they say beings in the higher realms, they don't eat physical food, and they feed on the bliss of dhyana. This is what we recite when we have a meal at all our branch monasteries. May all beings feed on dhyana bliss. This is what it refers to. Yeah, this kind of sensation. They feed on joy. They feed on rapture. So when you are literally there and you are able to feed on rapture, this becomes the actual sustenance of your body and your mind. Yeah. Okay, so Gwen is here. Gwen, do you want to ask a question? Okay, maybe let me finish number 4 and number 5, and let's see if you still want to ask your question. Okay, number 4 is bliss, ease, or joy. And it is the is what comes when you are when you're before, this is on number 3, when your happiness, zest, or rapture, which is physical, more physical and mental, when it reaches a certain point, then you move to what is known as sukha, ease. It's where physically and mentally you're very tranquil, and it just makes you feel really, really good. And your mind is very expansive. It's very, how you say, very calm, very expansive. Maybe I don't know how to explain this because I have never really understand what this means. It says that sukha is present in the first, second, and third of the meditative dhyanas, the first 1, 2, 3 dhyanas. Let me show you a picture that helps understand this better. Okay, hold on. Where's my precepts? Okay, I've shown you this before. You'll be familiar. And okay, let me slide it over. This is the formula for meditation. It usually starts with precepts. And then from precepts, you have no regret. You have freedom from remorse. And then from there, you have this joy or gladness that enables you to have your sustained application of mind. And then the next step is rapture. That's where rapture comes in. And of course, certain sutras, they define it sometimes differently. But what happens after rapture, as we just seen, is priti, happiness, or otherwise known as happiness, zest, or rapture. And then sukha, which is bliss, ease, or joy, which here also refers to tranquility and happiness together at the same time. So, and then after that, your mind gets really, really concentrated. A totally different level of concentration that you can't find in everyday life. Okay, and that brings us to number 5. Number 5, which is chitta ekagrata, which is one-pointedness of mind. Okay, so what does this mean? Because he also says a more literal rendering might be gone to oneness. Okay, it's a very deep state of meditative. It's not a trance, but it's a state where you are concentrated only on your object of meditation. Okay, so you have the initial application of thought, and then you have the sustained application of mind, and then you've gone to the next 2-3 steps where physically and mentally you bring your body to a whole different level of well-being. Okay, then at this point in time, your concentration is no longer very narrow, but it's very wide and expansive, but at the same time stable. So you can pay attention to different things. You can think about different things, but your calmness is very stable. Your concentration is stable and it's non-wavering. So it doesn't mean that you're only focused on one single thing. By the time your mind is so focused that you can, if you use the analogy of sitting in meditation, at this point in time, you can get up and you can walk around and nothing ruffles your mind. You can talk to people, you can do things, you can eat and all that, but your concentration never falters. Even if someone will come and slap you in the face, or a firecracker were to go off, behind you, you are not fazed. You can think about it, you can pay attention to it, but your concentration is not affected at all. Yeah. Okay. Let me see in my notes. Yeah. So that's what the last one means, and that's why we look back at that thing. It's called concentration. And if you move further and you start examining, say, a suitable topic, like where do your thoughts come from, things like that, then you start developing wisdom of seeing things as they are. And then that leads you to ending birth and death. Okay. So Wong Sui has a question. When one is at 3, one does not eat for months and not feel hungry, but eventually one will be bones only, right? Okay, well, we're not going to cover it today, but we're going to look at what Shufu talks about the first dhyana, second dhyana, third dhyana, and the fourth dhyana. In the first dhyana, Shufu says that the breathing stops, the physical breathing stops. So if you, and this has happened at CDTV before, someone meditating with the monks, a layperson, I don't remember the exact details, but I think Shufu held a piece of paper or a leaf under the person's nose to show people that he wasn't breathing or something like that. That I'm not sure about the story. Maybe don't quote me. But Shufu definitely say that first dhyana, your breathing stops, and then you can sit for up to 7 days without. It doesn't feel like 7 days, and you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to go to the toilet or eat or anything like that, because your inner alchemy of the body has started. And then the second dhyana, the pulse stops, and then Shufu says an inner breathing takes over. Then third dhyana, I can't remember what happens. So you are right. Okay, when you say that, actually it's not at 3. Yeah, I think for second dhyana, Shufu says you can sit up to 1 month. And then the third dhyana, you can sit longer. And then one will be bones only. No, because like I said, the inner alchemy of the body starts to take over. And then, I mean, even the first dhyana, when you don't breathe for, and you can sit there for seven days. And that's what, let me see, who did that? I think it was Elder Master Shin. He went to Burma or Thailand, and over there they really emphasize meditation. So I'm not sure what the intent was, but Elder Master Shin showed off his kung fu by just sitting there in one spot and not moving for a few days to show that he can do that. And after that he was respected, something like that. Yeah. So whether one will be bones only, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah. All right. Gwen says, okay, so Gwen has a question regarding Sutra copying, because right now at our new branch at Golden in Canada, they are having a Sutra copying exercise for people who are interested. So the question was, would it be bad karma if she asked people if they would like to participate and they say no? No, it will not be bad karma for them, because, how you say? Okay, it's tricky. Unwholesome karma, actually karma we shouldn't use words like bad or good. We use words like wholesome or unwholesome, because it's not a moral judgment. It's more the effects when it happens to you, whether you like it or not. If you like it, then it's wholesome. If you don't like it, then it's unwholesome. It's not someone saying it's bad or good, although it wouldn't be entirely wrong to use that, but it's not accurate. So for them, if they say no because they're not interested or anything like that, no, it's not unwholesome karma at all. Yeah. But if they have a wrong view, and it perpetuates a wrong view, then it may not be entirely wholesome, but at the same time, it's okay. You can ask people, but if you know someone is really against the kind of things, then of course you don't ask them. And then so no, they would not create bad karma or unwholesome karma if they refuse, if they say no. Then if not vegetarian, how long should one be vegetarian before copying the sutras? You don't have to be a vegetarian to copy the sutras. Okay. It doesn't matter what the rules are or what they say. Okay. It is encouraged to be a vegetarian, but it would be a shame if someone is not ready to change their diet, to be denied the opportunity to recite, not recite, to what's the word, to write out, to copy the sutras. Yeah, it would be a shame just because they're not vegetarian to not have the opportunity, because everyone is on different stages of the path. And they may not be vegetarian now, but they might be in the future or in a future life. So don't worry about whether they're vegetarian or not. But if they are conducive to the idea, then you can encourage them to say, okay, if you become vegetarian, then it will be helpful, because it's just an expedient means. Yeah. Let me see. Does anyone else have any questions? So another question about how long should they be vegetarian? Leave it up to them. Let them decide for themselves. Don't force people, because once you force, then the proper intention isn't there anymore. You don't want anyone to do this with a resentful heart or intention, because then it totally goes against it. If they're resentful, it becomes unwholesome. Let's put it this way: if you're so afraid of them creating unwholesome affinities with the Dharma, don't force them to the point that they become resentful or they feel like they have to do it because they're told to do it, and there's no joy or happiness when they do it. There should be joy and happiness if they turn vegetarian, or at least they feel like they're doing something really wholesome. They may not be happy because it's not easy, but they know it's the right thing to do. Yeah, give them that kind of understanding or impression. So don't let their diet get in the way, because if not, how are they supposed to create wholesome affinities if they don't have much in the first place, right? Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? So maybe they're not vegetarian now, but they get the chance to copy out the sutra, and that gives them some wholesome affinities. And then after that, they might become, they might change their diet. Yeah. All right. Okay. So it's way past time. Sorry about that. Let me bring up to end this slideshow. Bring up the Okay, we have another question I just saw. The gone to oneness to what? Is this the... I don't know what you're referring to. Maybe in the next class, I will review the slides, and then you can ask it again. Gone to oneness. Yeah. But offhand now, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I can't remember. I don't remember. Yeah. All right. Okay. Dedication of merit. Hello. Okay, sorry, I lost my microphone there. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Give me one moment to... Okay. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Rebel Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, so we'll see you next week. I actually had a story about one of the Brahma gods, and I didn't know that my explanation on the 10 different factors of 5 wholesome, 5 unwholesome will take so long. So we'll do that next week. Okay, and all right. So we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
阿弥陀佛，法师。